PEMF devices use changing currents to create changing magnetic fields. And this can be done by switching the current on and off in very complex ways. And the rhythmic switching on and off of an electric current in these current loops creates pulsating magnetic fields. From this changing current comes the waveform of the PEMF signal. The most common waveforms used are the sine wave, square wave, and sawtooth. Now, therapeutically speaking, what is most important is the amount of time it takes for each wave to reach its peak. That is, how rapidly it rises and falls. And this can be represented in Faraday's law as delta phi over delta t, which means the change in magnetic flux divided by the change in time. Now, sometimes you will see this listed as dB dt, but it's more accurate to say delta phi over delta t because we have to factor in the area of the coils. So the faster the signal reaches its peak, the sharper or steeper the slope will be, and hence the greater the change in magnetic flux. Now, square wave and sawtooths have the greatest change in magnetic flux, and hence the greatest biological and healing effect because their slopes are the steepest. Now, keep in mind that the delta phi over delta t does also include the area of the coil, so larger coils along with a rapid rise and fall signal will give you the maximum magnetic induction. Magnetic field strength is also a part of the delta phi, but you don't need high intensity. It is best to use larger coils with a very clear high fidelity signal, which comes from good electronics and very tightly wound copper coils, and of course this rapid rise and fall signal. As we'll see in the next video, the key is frequency resonance, not intensity, and when you use high intensity it can have damaging effects on the body. So back to the signal. Both the sawtooth and square wave have rapid rise and fall times that are far more abrupt than a simple sine wave or even a triangle wave or other waveforms. And here is the key point. The more abrupt the rise and fall time, the greater the induced EMF, and hence the greater the biological effect. Waveforms like a sine wave or triangle wave have gradual rise and fall times and are not capable of maximum ion transport. These devices ignore the many studies that demonstrate the profound biological effects of waveforms with sharp rise and fall times, such as the sawtooth and square wave. For example, the NASA study in 2003 by Dr. Goodwin showed that a 10 Hz square wave had the maximum biological effects of cells in culture, and interestingly, he used a very low intensity as well. And I'll put a link below this video so you can look up that study yourself. Now, I just want to make a couple notes here. An idealized square wave, or even sawtooth, is never going to be a perfectly vertical line. It'll be more of a trapezoid than a square wave, but it's still going to be close enough. And I'm going to do a future video on the signal in Fourier series and transforms and how these waveforms are created. But most good PEMF devices, like the IMRS and like some others, use a very good square wave and sawtooth signal.